Hello everybody, my name is Patricia Hetherington. I run Action on the Side, the filmmaking project, and this is a video workshop about the legal stuff relating to the Action on the Side 1 month filmmaking project and any other projects that we run, for instance the 48-hour film competition. This is normally a workshop that I would run on day one of the 1 month project before we hand out the first release form to go through what all the components are of the contracts, why we do the contracts before they get signed. However, this time we have changed our process so the forms are being distributed and signed digitally. So this video serves as the workshop before you sign, explaining what it is that you're signing and why you're signing it. This is also a training video on the legalities of making a film, what the contracts are and why we do them, so that if you're making your own projects, you know what sort of agreements you need to have in place. So this workshop, welcome to the Action on the Side, the legal stuff, aka what needs signing and why. Here's what we're going to be covering. So we're going to be looking at what contracts and release forms are, the background of the project and what a background is in a contract, what chain of title is, copyright, moral rights, and then various clauses that are in the contract, such as consideration, a very important clause. Then we go through what the agreements are with the Action on the Side 1 month filmmaking project. There's the project release form, the writer's agreement, the crew agreement, the cast agreement, the background talent agreement, the location agreement, and the composer agreement. Now, I will say at this point, I am not a lawyer myself. I have not studied law. My background is as a producer, so I've produced multiple films, over 30 I think it is now, 30 short films. But as part of my master's degree, I did a module on the legalities of filmmaking, or the legalities of producing, and these documents, the project release form all the way down to the composer agreement, were developed with a media and entertainment lawyer. So this was part of my research, part of my studies, and I'm sharing this with you. Okay, so first things first, what is a contract? Now, a contract can be verbal or can be in writing. Best practice, of course, for producers is to get contracts in writing because verbal agreements aren't worth the paper they're written on. So, the minimum idea of what a contract is, the base idea, is that it is a legally binding promise made between at least two parties to fulfill an obligation in exchange for something of value. So party one is offering party two something, party two agrees to do something in return for an amount of money or something that they've agreed on, which doesn't have to be money, but it's basically something written down that says what these parties are agreeing to in exchange for what. That's what it is. Oh, I will say, when you hear me say release form, a written agreement, contract, in many ways those are interchangeable. So for a document between two people to be considered a contract, it has to include these elements. It has to include an offer, so party one offers X to party two. It has to include an acceptance of the offer, so party two agrees to the offer. They sign this agreement, and signing this agreement they agree to. A consideration. Now, a consideration is the thing of value that comes into play when the offer is accepted. So it can be money. Quite often it is money. But it could be something else. It might be, I offer this item of value rather than money. But generally it is money. And there has to be an intent to create legal relations. So there has to be some sort of agreement that there's a continuation of the relationship going past the contract. So what will happen going past signing the contract? Okay, so at the start of every legal agreement, there's likely to be a background. A background gives context of what has led up to the contract. So for the action on the side projects, the filmmaking projects are run by me, Patricia Hetherington, hello, and they're run through my production company, Busy Kiwi Productions. So Action on the Side is not the production company, Busy Kiwi Productions is the production company. And because I run the production company, I am the producer. It's a limited liability company, which I won't go into too much now, but it means that the company owns the film that we're making, not me, and not Action on the Side, because that's not a legal entity, but Busy Kiwi Productions is. So that's the background. It's written on the contract like this. Action on the Side is a short filmmaking project run in the UK by Busy Kiwi Productions, and it's got my company's information there. So you can look it up. The registered office, I've blacked that out for now because it might change in future, such as if I move. This agreement is covered by the laws of England. Any dispute would be covered by the courts of England. So a contract would need to say which laws the contract falls under, and if it does lead to a dispute, which laws would, or which courts would assess the dispute. In the case of a dispute, you always go back to the producer, the person who signed the contract in the first place. But there we go. It will outline the date the agreement was entered into, who it's been entered into with, which would be myself as the producer, and the other person. So party 1, producer, party 2, crew member or cast member or whichever. And it outlines what it is we're making. So the producer intends to produce a short film entitled, we've got the film title, intended for theatrical and online distribution, which is what we're planning to do with the film, is we want to screen it in a cinema and we're going to release it online. Chain of title. So with these contracts, what you are proving is the transfer of ownership. So this is so we can actually do anything with the film. Somebody needs to own all the copyright, the right to make copies, aka copyright. So that's going to be the production company, that's going to be myself as producer, as owner of the production company, to be able to exploit the film. Now we say exploit, that's not a negative thing, it means to make money off the film, even though there's no money because it's a short film, but to be able to submit it to film festivals, to be able to screen it at events, to be able to release it online, and to be able to distribute it for showreel material, so to send it out to everybody. So one person or one company needs to own those rights, the copyright. If multiple people own it, then it's going to get difficult to be able to release it, because then you have to get multiple people's agreement. And when you're entering films to film festivals, part of their rules, part of their requirements, is that your film, that one person or one company has to own the chain of title, has to be able to prove that they own the copyright. So when you're working on a film, you are creating artistic things. If you are an actor, it's your performance. If you are recording the sound, it's less likely creative, but you are doing the act of recording. If you are operating the camera, then you own the footage. If you are writing music, then it's the music. All of those things that you are creating need to be transferred to the producer or the production company. And that's done through the release form or the contract. And that's how we evidence that we have the chain of title. It's the trail documenting this person created something artistic and they're transferring it to me, or they're transferring it to this production company. If, for instance, Busy Kiwi Productions sold Action on the Side to another company, then the rights would then transfer to that other company. That's not happening in the foreseeable, it's just that's how the chain of title works. So, you have rights every time you create something that is copyrighted, so you create copyrighted material. In the United Kingdom, you automatically have the rights when you create a copyrighted work. That's why in the United Kingdom, if you write a screenplay, an original screenplay, you don't have to put the copyright logo, you don't have to say that you own the copyright, you don't have to register it with an office because you automatically own the rights. So, again, because you've created Oh, I'm going to have to cut that out of the film. I didn't want to, but there we go. Okay, so for the production company to be able to release the film, that's why we have the contract between you and the producer, transferring your copyright and waiving your moral rights. So let's look at what moral rights are. Okay, this is what the transfer of rights, this is the paragraph where you transfer it. Okay, so it says there, in consideration for the nominal sum of £1, the receipt and adequacy of which I hereby acknowledge, I waive my moral rights to the project, and I grant the express consent for the producer and production company, action on the side, and its future assignees, so that's if we sell it and it passes on, to use my name, image, voice, and likeness in the same project, in all forms of media, current and future, worldwide, and in perpetuity. We're going to break this down because there's a lot in there. The consideration is this element where it's the transfer of funds. It's the thing of value. Now, our projects are voluntary. You're not an employee. You're not getting paid for doing them. Because of that, we put the nominal sum of £1. So it's just a single coin, small amount that could arguably be £5 or 10p or whichever, but it's a nominal sum. By signing it, you're saying that you've received it, the receipt and adequacy, that it's enough, that you acknowledge. Now, it's a nominal sum, which means we don't give you the £1, but if you really want a £1 coin, just speak to me and we can do that because that's what the agreement says. But generally, for unpaid projects, that's what how it's written in the agreement, a nominal sum. Okay, so that's the consideration. You are transferring your copyright, you are waiving your moral rights in exchange for the consideration. So this is the waiving of the moral rights, we'll go into those in a moment, and you are granting consent for the producer, the production company, action on the side, and future assignees to use your name, so we can credit you, your image, your voice, and likeness in the same project, so only for this film. Now it says their name, image, voice, likeness for the director might include biography, because I mean that's kind of an all-encompassing thing. The name, so we can credit you. The image, voice, and likeness. That's more if you're appearing in front of camera, but it's also for our promotional purposes. So if we take behind-the-scenes photos, then we have video of you, or we have an image of you, then or we have a recording of you, of your voice. That's that permission. So it's for promotional purposes. I'll come back to that shortly. Okay, so it's only for this project, the same project, this one film, in all forms of media, current and future, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and worldwide and in perpetuity we're going to go through in just a moment. Okay, so let's quickly go through moral rights and what those are. Each country has moral rights. These are what the moral rights are in the UK. They're generally the same, but there are slight differences. So in the UK, you have 4 moral rights. The first one is the right to attribution, that if you create original artistic work, that you will be credited for your work. Now I know we're asking you to waive that moral right, but later on in the contract it is confirmed that you'll be credited for your work if it appears in the film. Okay, so you have the right to be attributed, for the work to be attributed to you, credited. The right to object to derogatory treatment of a work, that is if you're unhappy with how your work has been included in a film, or if somebody has used it in a way that you did not agree with, then you have the right to send a cease and desist letter, or you have the right to sue, or you have the right to get it removed or to complain. Now, of course, as producers, we need to have that right waived because we're making a film and we can't have somebody 10 years down the line say, I'm not happy with that film, we need you to pull it, because we want to use the film and the material in the film. So that's one of the reasons that we waived that right. Now, of course, we're working collaboratively on this project, so you'll see the project and you'll be able to say, while we're making it, I'm not so happy with that. And then we can discuss and amend at the time. So you are waiving the moral right, but that's the legal protection at our end. Okay. The right to object to false attribution. So the right to not be credited for something you didn't do. So if you were an actor, we can't say that you were the director unless you were the director, that sort of thing. Okay, so it's the right to not be credited for something you did not do. And the last one is the right to privacy of certain photographs and films. So for instance, if you're unhappy with some of the behind the scenes photos, with this moral right, pictures of yourself, you might say, I'm not happy about that, let's not use it. To be fair, then you can get into the moral rights of the photographer. That's opening up a can of worms. Let's close the can of worms for now. In regards to the action on the side project, we've got behind the scenes photos, we've got promotional material, so you are waiving that moral right. But again, if you're unhappy with any of the photos or images that we take and you don't want them released, then you just speak to us and we can remove them or not release them. Okay, so we have these moral rights, but we have protections elsewhere in the contract or in our project. Okay, so continuing on with what's in this paragraph here. So you're waiving the moral rights for the duration of copyright so that we can release the film. We also say, in all forms of media, current and future, because we're releasing a short film, but maybe in future we might decide to do a DVD, or we might decide to do an animatic, or to do a GIF. I mean, 30 years ago we didn't know what GIFs were. I'm pretty sure GIFs are younger than 30 years. So that's why we say all forms of media, current and future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Maybe we'll put it on a 360-degree virtual world. We don't know yet. So you're waiving your moral rights for that. And we say they're worldwide and in perpetuity because perpetuity is the duration of copyright. It means the duration of copyright, even though copyright isn't quite perpetuity. So let's talk about that, what I mean by that. So copyright at this moment in time lasts for as long as the author is alive plus 70 years. When copyright expires, work enters the public domain, which means people can do whatever they want with it. They can use it for their own artistic enterprise. For example, Mickey Mouse recently, last year, entered the public domain because Walt Disney had been deceased for 70 years. So all the things he created, such as Mickey Mouse, are now available to the public. The Disney company is famous for trying to extend copyright. So that's how long copyright currently is. The Disney company is pushing for 150 years. But at the moment it's 70 years after the author has died. So it says all forms of media, current and future, worldwide, and in perpetuity. In perpetuity just means the duration of copyright, because that might change. So that's why we haven't said for the duration of copyright. We've said in perpetuity, just to make it clearer that way. And again, all forms of media, current and future, what already exists and what might exist in the future. All right, so the offer, the thing that we are offering in the agreement. For taking part in the production, the producer may credit the crew member for their role. Now, I've said may because maybe for some reason you're not able to fulfill your end of the agreement. Something happens, you can't turn up to the set, or you're acting in a scene and the scene gets cut. We can't credit you for that. So it says may credit. We agree to provide you with a copy of the final film for promotional purposes for your showreel. So there'll be a download link, you can download it and you can cut it into your showreel. And if you're on set, we're providing catering. So this is what we're offering. If you are signing the form, you agree to take And signing the form, you agree to take part in the project on the shoot dates of, so this is an on-set part of the agreement, but that's what the offer is. The producer is offering to credit you, provide you with a copy of the film for a showreel, and if you're on set, provide catering. As part of this, you are acknowledging that you are not an employee of the production company or the producer. So Busy Kiwi Productions has not hired you as an employee. Action on the Side has not hired you as an employee. I myself have not hired you as an employee. You are acting in a voluntary capacity. So we also have here that you're not going to incur any additional costs or fees without the written consent of the producer. You can't go and spend a whole bunch of money for the film without getting that approved beforehand because we have a budget. So this is something here, we're not covering your income tax. That's part of that. Or we're not paying towards your national insurance. So you're not an employee of us, you're in a voluntary role, and you have to get approval for any costs towards the production. Alright, this is another section which is in contracts, indemnities, warranties, and liabilities. What this section is saying is that you are basically not going to hold the production company or the producer liable for issues related to the film. And it says here associated owners, licensees, subsidiaries, and affiliates. So, for instance, if we submit the film into a film festival and something comes up as a result of, I don't know, negligence, or, for instance, if you warrant that you've written the screenplay and the screenplay is original, and then it turns out it's not original, somebody else has written that screenplay, then it's not the producer or production company's fault, and it's not the fault of a film festival if they screen it. That's part of what that is. So it's basically saying indemnify means you're releasing from liability against any liabilities of any kinds whatsoever arising from or otherwise related to the development, production, distribution, or exhibition of this film project. So while we're making the film, developing the film, making the film, and submitting it to film festivals or releasing it online or screening it, it's basically not holding us liable. These includes but are not limited to a third-party claim, any third party or other claim of ownership, right, or interest in or otherwise relating to the film project. Again, that's if someone else says that they own the creative work that you say you've done, then it's not the producer's fault. Okay. Any claim of violation, such as defamation, libel, trade libel, slander, all of these things, privacy, moral rights. So if you're breaching somebody else's moral rights, it's not coming back on the production company. Any claims for negligence, injury to persons, including wrongful death, injury to property, or other injuries which may arise or result directly or indirectly in any way of connection to the film project. If you get hit by a bus on the way to the shoot, then it's not our fault. Please don't do that, of course. But also, I mean, we're not going to put you in any situation where there is the possibility of damage or death or anything on set. We have low risk shoots, so that sort of thing. These are still agreements that happen in bigger films. Stunt people sign these things, but yeah, there we go. Any breach or other violation of this agreement or other limited liability company communication, and any activities relating to the film project, anything. So basically, this is a hold all. You're not holding us responsible if things go wrong thing. This is a protection for us. So what an indemnity is, and I've copied and pasted these examples from the web, and if I share these slides with you, if you look in the notes sections, I have the link to where I got these from so you can find out more about it. So indemnity is protection against or compensation for a loss or liability. It's a contractual agreement of one party, the indemnifier, to compensate a loss to the other party, the indemnity holder, due to actions of the indemnitor or any other party. So it's to offer protection to one party in the agreeing to the contract if one party cannot fulfill their contractual obligations. So if you cannot fulfill your contractual obligations, it is not the fault of party one, the producer. or a production company. That's what it is. So protection against or compensation for a loss or liability. I hope that makes sense. If this is still unclear, let me know. I can provide more clarification. Okay, we also now have a GDPR statement. So if you've signed these agreements before, this is an additional that we've added. So the agreement can be signed physically or with a digital signature. If it's signed physically, it's printed. It's called a wet signature, which means you have a pen and you sign it physically with a pen, and then we can make a digital copy. We can scan it or take a picture of it and send you a copy. A digital copy of the signed agreement will be held by the producer and shared with the person who signed it. So both parties will have a copy of it. Personal data is protected in the United Kingdom under the General Data Protection Regulation under GDPR. And so we'll record your contact details but will not share with others without the express consent. So just so you're aware, this section is saying that we're going to keep a copy of the signed agreement for the duration of copyright. So ever, basically, in perpetuity. You'll receive a copy and we're not going to share your details without your consent. We'll discuss this in the first weekend because of course we'll need your contact details for the call sheet, but hopefully we get your consent for that. Because we're doing a digital signature, you'll get a copy of the signed agreement in your inbox, so it will be shared with you almost instantaneously. Okay, so a few points to note. Signing agreements, all of this. One, this is standard industry practice. Every film that you're working on, any project you're working on will have a contract, and it might have more or less information. Okay, here we go. You'll always have at least 24 hours when you're given a contract before anybody pressures you to sign it, so that you can consult a lawyer for advice, and you can get free advice. You can arrange a 15-minute consultation, and most lawyers provide free consultations where you can show them the agreement and get them to look over it. But you always have at least 24 hours. Always, 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 always read a contract before signing it. Look for the small print. Don't just sign it willy-nilly. Don't just trust the person. Always, always read it. And because we're using Adobe Sign to manage the contracts, it's going to be digital signatures. So a physical signature is a wet signature. A digital signature means you might have to log in or log in with your Facebook or your Google account or an Adobe account or set up an account to be able to sign, or it will have a method where you do some sort of logging in as you to be able to sign, and it will be time-stamped. Okay. So, what will you sign? These are the agreements that we have. Okay, so the first things first is we have a project release form. This is what we sign in the first agreement. This is for the people who have paid to take part in the project, the participants. This is releasing, this includes the indemnities, warranties, and liability section, and includes recognizing that you're working in a voluntary capacity, you're not an employee. It's outlining that you're taking part in the project from beginning to end. So that's what the project release form is. Additionally, we have the writer's agreement, so everybody has a chance to pitch. You don't have to sign an agreement if you're pitching because it's simply sharing your idea, but if your film is selected, then we need you to transfer the rights for the film to the production company to be able to make it. So there is a writer's agreement for whoever's script is selected. If you are fulfilling a crew role, so you're behind the camera, there is also a crew release form. Okay, so let's say you're taking part in the project and you're being the editor, then you are signing a crew release form. If you're also appearing in front of camera, then you'll sign a cast release form. They have only slightly different wording, but it's to protect ourselves in terms of what you're creating. So, project release forms for the project, the cast and crew releases are for the film itself. The cast release form, that's for anybody who's in front of camera, so our actors, our talent, but if we have people filling the space in the background, like randoms on the street who are walking past and doing that for multiple takes, then we have a background talent release form. So for instance, if we're filming in a cafe and we have our two actors who are talking to each other as characters, that's cast, but if we've got people sitting in the background and we don't really see their faces, that's background talent. The location agreement, so part of proving chain of title is proving that you have the agreements of all the crew, you have agreements from all the cast, you have agreements from where you were filming. So the location agreement has information about when we can access the space, when it's available, what requirements we have, what rules there are, all of that. But it's an agreement with the location saying that we can film there. It's with a representative for the property. So for instance, if it's a hotel or a cafe, then it would be whoever the manager is. If it's a flat or an apartment, it would be the head tenant, or if we could get the owner's signature, the owner's signature. But it needs to be a representative who can warrant that they have the right to sign into an agreement like that. There is something called guerrilla filmmaking, which we might end up doing, but that's a different conversation, so I won't go into that right now. Okay, now music rights are more complicated, and I'm not going to go in depth into music rights. Let's just say that the person who writes the music has copyright, the person who performs the music has copyright, and the person who records the music has copyright. So we have an agreement if a composer has written an original score specifically for the film, and we have an agreement if, for instance, there's a band who already has a piece of music and is letting us use it for the film. For these, we can arrange non-exclusive rights, and we've done that in the past, so they can still use the music, but if it's an exclusive contract, then we're the only ones who can use that piece of music. So generally for these projects, we use a non-exclusive agreement. And if the composer, for instance, writes a piece of music and they have a musician perform it, we also have a musician release form. It's probably the least used form that we have because it's not as common anymore. But let's say a composer has a drummer and a guitarist, then the drummer and the guitarist have to sign their contract as well. So this is our musician release form. And those are the contracts that we have. That's our overview on legal agreements and how we're doing them. If you have any questions, then contact me. I'll have my contact details where I share this. Let me quickly show you how Adobe Sign works. Okay, so this is something that I have. So here's the project release form. Full name, email address, phone number. We have with the project release form, by signing this form, I agree to take part in the Action on the Side short film production project, AOTS. So this is our code that we use for the project. So for instance, if it's March 2024, we go AOTS MAR24. It does have a lot of duplication with the cast and crew agreements, but that's one of the differences, is it says which project you're taking part in. I forgot to say, of course, glad we've got this now. Anybody who is aged under 18 cannot sign a contract. A parent or guardian has to sign it for them. So if you're under 18, a parent or guardian will need to sign this agreement. We put the name of the person who's taking part, or the name of the crew member, or the name of the cast, and then we put the name of the parent or guardian. Alright, so here we have whoever's signing, their sign here. If it's the parent or guardian of somebody who's 18, they put PP and they put their signature, that's fine. But for you, let's say you're taking part in the project, your signature goes here, your name goes here, and the date goes here. And this is set up as a template, so these are just boxes that you fill out. Once you've signed, it comes back to me, I sign, producer, Busy Kiwi Productions, my name's already there, and I put the date, and then you get a copy of this. There's a little bit of duplication here with your name, and you've got your contact details, but generally that's what it looks like. So these are automated that are sent out to you. So yes, if you have any questions, let me know, and if you're taking part on the project, as soon as you've watched this video through, let me know and I will send you the project release form so you can sign it before the weekend even starts. Alright, ka kite ano, thank you very much, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video.